So let it be known that the first part of this video was recorded way back, like a week or so. I just wanted to wait for the playoffs to be drawn, and then I'd add, well, this part of the video to the other parts. But if we can get this video to, get ready, 800 likes, the highest I've ever asked for, that would be sick. Thanks for 13k, and also just a real quick note, there's a little bit of an awkward transition as we go into the pre-recorded part. You'll know what I mean about now. We'll start off with the European qualifiers since the first round is now complete. Group A had a battle between Serbia and Portugal. Portugal had 2 more matches to play, Ireland away and then Serbia at home. Serbia, on the other hand, just had 1 match remaining, and that would be Portugal away, obviously. Portugal failed to beat Ireland, but it still meant being atop of the group due to goal differential. Serbia still very much had a chance to qualify for the World Cup, but of course a match away in Portugal is going to be quite difficult. So now comes Serbia versus Portugal to end Group A. All Portugal had to do was at least draw and they qualify for the World Cup, while Serbia had to win. Portugal acquired the lead early on, but a Tadic equalizer cancelled things out. But with a 1-1 scoreline as it stood, Portugal would qualify. But then in the 90th minute, Alexander Mitrovic came in with the heroics. His game-winning header sends Serbia to the World Cup automatically, while Portugal are sent off to the playoff round with a real threat of not qualifying. Group B had another heavyweight battle between Sweden and Spain. Both nations would face each other in their last qualifiers to determine who qualifies for the World Cup, and Sweden could have had the upper hand going into the final match, but they lost against Georgia. Spain took advantage of this by beating Greece 1-0 and then beating Sweden in their last qualifier to automatically qualify for the World Cup, while Sweden go into the playoff round along with Portugal. Group C saw the Swiss and the Italians have a bout that could only end in a draw. Jorginho had the chance to give Italy an advantage late on, but yeah. So now it was down to the final match day for the two. Switzerland were playing at home against Bulgaria, while Italy had to play Northern Ireland away. The Swiss took care of business, while the Italians could only get a draw against Northern Ireland, meaning Switzerland automatically qualify for the World Cup, while Italy again go into a playoff round. Man, you Italians sure better hope that 2017 doesn't repeat itself. Group D was pretty much decided who was going to be going to the World Cup, France obviously, and Mbappe's 4 goals against Kazakhstan basically sealed the deal. Now the playoff spot, as I said before in the last qualifier video, was definitely up for grabs still. Finland had a massive victory against Bosnia 3-1, but then they had France. And Ukraine only had 1 match, and as long as they could win that match, they would go into the playoff round, which they did. All credit to the Finns though, they performed really well against a strong French side, and unfortunately it just wasn't their day. Group B, not too much here. Belgium sealed the deal and find a ticket to Qatar, while the Welsh finished second, go on to the playoffs, and also the Czech Republic go on to the playoffs. Why is that? Because they're one of the top 2 Nations League group winners that did not finish first or second. Group F, also pretty simple stuff here. Denmark had already qualified, so they didn't really have to worry too much. They did lose to Scotland though, and speaking of Scotland, they have gone on to the playoff round after they beat Moldova 2-0. Austria was the other top Nations League group winner that did not finish first or second, so they also go off to the playoffs. Now Group G, listen, Turkish fans, it was a joke. But I think there's this pattern with Turkey where whenever you don't expect them to be successful, they are, and vice versa. Because they did well in the qualifiers prior to the Euros, so everyone was hyping them up as these dark horse picks. And then, when something is expected of them, they completely blow it. But props to Dark Horse FC, who acquired 6 points, and it was enough to get themselves a playoff spot. Now Norway and the Netherlands was a bit of a different situation for them. Both of them had drawn their first 2 qualifiers going into their last qualifier between each other. The Netherlands ended Norway's campaign, beating them 2-0, and they have qualified for the World Cup for the first time since 2014. But unfortunately, no Haaland until 2026, I guess. Group H, going into the final match day, was Russia versus Croatia. All Russia had to do to qualify for the World Cup was at least get a draw. A waterlogged pitch would display some of the most chaotic football these qualifiers have seen so far, and unfortunately for Russia, Croatia came on top. So the 2018 finalists go on to qualify for the World Cup for the 3rd straight time, and Russia go into the playoffs. Group I, pretty simple stuff. England did not choke, fortunately for English fans, unfortunately for me. So England go on to qualify for the World Cup, while Poland do just enough to qualify for the playoffs. Group J, Germany didn't really have to do anything because they had already qualified, but they didn't really let off the gas one bit. Romania would only get a draw against Iceland, which North Macedonia would take full advantage of. Armenia didn't even have to wait for the beatdown from Germany, because instead they got a beatdown from North Macedonia, 5-0. And then on the final day to seal a playoff spot, North Macedonia beat Iceland 3-1. Boy, oh f***ing boy. Are these playoffs something else? This is the second part of the recording, as you can see from the, new t-shirt. Before we go into the actual draw itself, here's just a quick explanation of how it works. 12 teams, 2 pots. Pot 1 has all of the seeded teams, and then pot 2 has all the unseeded teams. In the playoffs, there are 3 paths that will determine 3 other members of Uefa that will be going on to World Cup 2022. Each path will have a semi-final and a final, and of course, whoever wins the final goes to Qatar. The draw starts with Scotland being pulled out of pot 1 first, so they go into path A. Then came Wales on the other side of path A, easily the best case scenario for both nations if they wanted to qualify. Moving forward to path B, Russia gets drawn on one side of path B, and now we await who's on the other side of path B.
Sweden.
So just when you thought bottling was bad, Italy and Portugal are in the same path. Anyways, on to the unseeded teams. Ukraine and Austria draw into path A, Poland and the Czech Republic draw into path B, Turkey and, bless their souls, North Macedonia draw into path C. So the final matchups are as followed. In path A, we have Scotland versus Ukraine, and then Wales versus Austria. The winner of Wales versus Austria will host the final. This path is really interesting to me because of one reason. The last time one of these teams has made it to the World Cup was 2006. That was Ukraine. When it comes to the other teams, Scotland and Austria have not made it to the World Cup since 1998. And just to make things even better, the only appearance the Welsh have made in the World Cup was back in 1958. You guys might not actually know this because I don't think I've ever mentioned it, but I am half Scottish, so yeah, it would be pretty cool to see them in the World Cup, I can't lie. Now on to path B, where we have Russia versus Poland, and then Sweden versus the Czech Republic. The winner of Russia versus Poland will host the final of that path. Now Sweden may have a good system, they have upsetted Spain before, but I wouldn't exactly count out the Czechs yet. I mean, if you may recall, they did do pretty decent in the Euros. Then we have Russia versus Poland. Poland, of course, having the future Ballon d'Or winner, Robert Lewandowski. Today is Monday, and the reveal is supposed to happen in like an hour. So here's to hoping that that statement actually ages well. Finally, we have the death path.
This is where I was reborn. This is where you will pay.
Italy versus North Macedonia. Portugal versus Turkey. The winner of Portugal versus Turkey will host the final of the death path. We will more than likely see Portugal versus Italy in the final, but I wouldn't exactly count out the underdogs here. As we've talked about before, every single time we don't expect anything out of Turkey, they overperform. In North Macedonia, I mean, they beat Armenia 5-0. Not to mention, this team is going to play like their hearts are on the line. Now, I get it, okay? The UEFA playoffs aren't exactly going to give us the best UEFA teams in the World Cup. But to the idiots, mostly the verified Twitter accounts, who are saying stuff like the best 32 teams should be in the World Cup, now I ain't trying to wait every 4 years to see the Euros plus Messi and Neymar. Like, it's kind of funny, the people who are against this Super League and have some kind of take like this, I don't know, it just kind of makes me laugh. There's a reason why it's called the World Cup. Also, maybe you guys don't recall World Cup 2010, World Cup 2014, World Cup 2018, but this sure will be a very entertaining playoff, and March needs to come sooner, man. But I'd love to hear what you guys think about these draws and matchups. Leave your comments down below. If you'd like to leave down your predictions, go ahead. A massive shout out to our patrons, of course, Adroit, Daniel Ortiz, Joseph Bonfante, Victor, Dominic Griffin, Emmett Shea, Lewis, Big Bird, Cash Getty, Exos Mubobo, and of course, Tomicus. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there'll be a link down below and also an annotation up there. You can follow my Twitter for Twitter things. You can follow my Instagram if you'd like. Follow my TikTok, trying to get to 3,000. And of course, you can follow my inactive Twitch. But until then, I'll see you guys.